Traditional strategies, they don't work anymore.
AI is making decisions faster than we can understand them.
Everyone's selling answers. Nobody has the truth.
Disruption isn't coming. It's already here.
Who's willing to cut through the bullshit?
Outwired.
It's been a day, Scott. It's been a day.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
So I woke up this morning, my computer wouldn't turn on. Said the CPU was overheated. Surprised it's running right now. So I had to. You remember the journey I was on, like in early January, trying to fix this thing. So don't know what's wrong with it. So I got to pull the whole thing apart, like pull off the water cooling, take the CPU out, wipe off all the thermal paste, put on new thermal paste, screw it all back in there. And these screws suck, by the way. So I got like really bad calluses all over my fingers now. Like it's fun to like kind of squeeze, but it hurts when you try to do anything with it. It doesn't hurt. It's just annoying, right? And so finally got this thing back working. That took like 5 hours of my day this morning. So that's how my day started when I woke up. So obviously the computer's working now. We'll see if it continues to work. And then overspend on Gemini, like I was telling you, by like $4,000. So that's fun. But, you know, other than that, life's good. How's your day?
My day has been working on stuff in a completely different category, which has been, super interesting, honestly.
Like outside of outdoor hospitality?
Yeah. I think I've spoken before about the kind of the risk, in purchasing products or booking a site or a room or whatever. And this, I'm at the end of this full-blown project for it across several product categories, and it's been dense, man. It's been really dense in terms of just kind of really getting into the weeds on the analysis and figuring out the best way to present the information that can be pretty complex. There's always a challenge, but it's been fun. It's like, this is what I do for fun. Sometimes I do prefer to go like fly fishing, but this is fun for the workday. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how it works and see how at the end of the day, when you look at the results and the picture becomes clear in the mind of the consumer, where risk lies, what parts of the whole equation contribute most to risk in a purchase, and how that information can then be turned over to communications people, to product development people, to an entire team, and say, here you go. Here's your basic roadmap on how to address some of these issues. And it becomes over time, it takes a while to kind of plow through everything, but it becomes very clear at a certain point. It's like, oh, this is what does it. This is what triggers it for this product category, which is way different than another one. And so it's been a great exercise. I've really sharpened up the type of analysis I do with it, and I'm applying it to outdoor hospitality now. And we're seeing a similar pattern, being able to identify where it is. Where's the rub? Where's the tension in the kind of the, to use the overused phrase, but the customer journey, how they find places, how they book, what prevents them from doing that, and what, where is that rub that rubs them the wrong way, maybe, or rubs them the right way, and they're happy, So because it does work both ways. And what I have to say is interesting though in presenting the information, and then I'll stop, is the idea that in this case we're talking about risk, which is fundamentally viewed as a negative. And though sometimes people thrive on risk, depends on the situation, but in this situation risk is viewed as a negative, so everything I present is in the negative. How typically we present things, you see a bar chart and it's like, oh, 40% said this in a positive context, but in this context, if 40% say it's bad. It means that it has a higher risk value, so okay. It's so what you're trying to do is frame that so it's very understandable. But that's to me it's fascinating, and this will be part of what we're going to keep working on as we move forward, working with people within the industry, and especially at the campground level and at your level in communications on how to minimize some of these risks and how to kind of break through the noise.
Interesting. But we're not going to lose you from outdoor hospitality, right? You're going to stay here?
No, believe me, I this is my home, but it's nice to jump into the someone jump over the fence and into someone else's pool once in a while. So it's been interesting. It's fun, but no, I don't have any desire to take that kind of leap. Awesome.
All right, good. My head's been in gas prices all week. Well, it's been a lot of places. Let's put it that way. The one thing I want to talk about today is gas prices, just briefly, because I think there's some interesting stuff that I don't know that I can say I've uncovered it, because people know this, right? Lots of people know this. But maybe the majority of people who are watching this show, and the majority of, let's call it, consumers who, let's just call it people, the majority of people, right? Like economists know this is what I mean, right? People who are in the oil industry know this, especially in the United States and really all around the world. So I've been learning about gas prices, and we talked about how there's a certain threshold, I think, where gas prices are good for outdoor hospitality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a number that you would peg that says, like, this is a number that below that would be good and above that would be bad, or is it really just always good?
I think you're safest if you stay under $5. I think under $5, you're gonna that will probably still benefit us to a degree. People will stay closer to home. They'll feel the pinch a little bit. They might shave off, a couple stops here and there. But if you get over $5, then people will really change their habits a lot more. They will travel less, I feel. So,
all right. So we need to have a conversation then. Are you ready?
All right.
So because I didn't want to go off, how I have this tendency, yeah, is the right word. I have this tendency to sometimes go down rabbit holes. I didn't want to really go down a rabbit hole because I don't want to talk about this the majority of the show, but I feel like it's important based on what you just said, even more so based on what you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go back and forth with AI on lots of different topics, but I've got this master kind of thread where I've been just talking about the Iran war and gas prices and oil and shipments and all that stuff, right? And so last night or 2 nights ago, I started looking at this EIA report, which I think is the energy, I don't know, some government agency, right? They basically report on lots of stuff, but the stockpile of oil at Cushing, Oklahoma, crude oil, sweet versus sour versus the diesel output and the gasoline, all the stuff, right? And they release this report every Wednesday. So one came out this morning that we're going to talk about briefly. And so I've been going down this rabbit hole and got to these numbers finally and figured out that I could pull this data from these websites every Wednesday. And so in the course of all that huge conversation, I had AI basically say, all right, everything that we just talked about the last couple of days about the supply and why, basically, even if somehow we settled our difference with Iran tomorrow or right now in the next 5 minutes even, and the Strait of Hormuz magically opened, why what I'm about to describe to you is still probably going to happen. And that's why I think it's important to discuss. So are you ready for this?
Yep.
At AI, I said to AI, explain this in a way that I can read it to someone who has no idea what the fuck any of this is, or why it's happening, or what the difference is between blends of why gasoline is higher and all that other blah 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 blah. And so I just like it gave me a whole thing. So here's some of this is reiterated, but just to tell the neat story, okay? And you stop me if you want to talk about any of this.
Okay.
So the United States went to war with Iran on February 28th. We know that. U.S. and Israel launched massive airstrikes that killed their supreme leader, destroyed military targets around the country. Iran fought back by launching missiles at the Israel and U.S. bases in the Middle East. And then they did one thing that changes everything. They closed the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? Strait of Hormuz is a narrow strip of water. We've looked at this on the show before, between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. It's about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Before this war, roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passed through it every single day, about 20 million barrels of oil. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, all of their oil exports flow through this one bottleneck. Iran controls the northern shore and has the military capability to make it impassable with mines, missiles, and naval forces. They did exactly that. They mined it, they shot at ships, and traffic dropped from over 100 vessels a day to essentially zero. Okay, now we're caught up. We're on the same page, right? I mean, you and I were, but for the audience.
Right.
So now here's the part most people don't understand. You hear that America is the world's largest oil producer. That's true. The U.S. produces about 13.5 million barrels per day. Politicians will frequently point to that number and say we're energy independent. We're not. America consumes about 20 million barrels of oil per day. We produce 13.5 million. You with me so far?
Yep.
The math doesn't work. That means we import roughly 6 to 7 million barrels of oil every day to make up the difference. So despite being the world's largest producer of oil, we are a net oil importer, despite that fact. All right, so we're all on the same page so far?
Yep.
Okay, but it gets worse because not all of the oil is the same. And this is the part that nobody on TV explains. Oil comes in different grades, like different types of flour for different types of baking. The two main characteristics are weight and sulfur content. Light sweet crude is thin, low sulfur, and easy to refine. Heavy sour crude is thick, high sulfur, and harder to refine, but it produces more diesel, jet fuel, and petrochemicals per barrel. Okay?
Okay.
The oil America produces, mostly from the Permian Basin in West Texas, is light sweet crude. But the massive refineries along the Gulf Coast in Texas and Louisiana were specifically built over decades.
All right. Well, it looks like we lost Brian. I don't know what he was going to continue reading in terms of the gas prices, but as we sit here and wait for Brian to come back, I think what he's going to get into and explain is the complexity of the fuel economy and how really eclectic it is, just the different types of products and so on, and ultimately how that impacts our industry, because all these things have far-reaching tentacles into all different industries, and ours is no exception, whether it's the cost of goods to transportation, everything. So, to get to his point, and I don't know what that is because I haven't seen what he has. But the idea to me is that we, what we're looking at is potentially a pretty big hit to our economy based on this, I would say, and fuel insecurity that's going on currently, without any resolution in sight. But also, even if it ended immediately, that
Chrome.
okay,
Hi. Can you hear me?
yep,
I'm on my phone now because my computer froze.
yeah. So I kept on talking
That's good. Did you talk about anything interesting? How long was I gone?
a couple minutes.
Oh, okay. Where did you hear me get cut off at?
You were kind
Enter
of
Jessica.
okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, you were just talking about the different types of refineries and the different types of fuel.
Okay, so the question I have is, just give it a sec. It'll start. If I gotta switch here and see if I can switch to another screen. Tell me if I pause and disappear. Can you still hear me or no?
I can hear you. You're a little broken up visually. Now you're froze. I can't hear you.
All right, is that better now?
I can hear you.
All right, so I can't switch screens on my phone, so we're just gonna have to wait for this thing to get back up in a second, and then I can finish telling my little story. And then you're gonna have to open the browser, Jessica, and hit restore, and then all of it should come back over there. See if I come back and how long I last. I guess I'm just gonna have to buy a new computer. I don't know what's wrong with that thing.
Okay. Bye.
No, I'm here. I just got off of the phone. You can hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I don't know if that's going to happen more often or more frequently, but I thought I don't know what's wrong with this computer. I'm just going to have to hire somebody to come look at it, I guess, and see if they can fix it. But so what was the last thing you heard me say about the gas prices and gasoline and stuff?
You were talking about the different types of products that are produced at the U.S. based refineries.
Okay. Did you hear me talk about the different grades of oil and stuff?
That's what you were talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just start there. So oil comes in different grades, like different types of flour for different types of baking. The two main characteristics are weight and sulfur content. Light sweet crude is thin, low sulfur, easy to refine. Heavy sour crude is thick, high sulfur, harder to refine, but produces more diesel, jet fuel, and petrochemicals per barrel. Okay. So the oil America produces, mostly from the Permian Basin in West Texas, is light sweet crude. But the massive refineries along the Gulf Coast in Texas and Louisiana were specifically built over decades to process heavy sour crude imported from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait. These are some of the largest and most complex refineries on Earth. They were engineered from the ground up to handle that thick, sulfur-rich oil from the Middle East. You cannot simply swap one type for the other. A refinery built for heavy sour crude can't efficiently run light sweet crude, just like a diesel engine can't run on regular gasoline. It technically works in limited amounts with modifications, but output drops, efficiency drops, and the mix of products that comes out the other end changes. Specifically, you get less diesel and jet fuel per barrel when you run light sweet crude through a refinery designed for heavy sour. So we're good? We're on the same page?
Yep.
Okay. So when Hormuz closed, those Gulf Coast refineries started losing their primary feedstock. The oil they were built to process stopped arriving. They can substitute some Canadian heavy crude that comes down through the Keystone Pipeline, some Venezuelan crude, and some Mexican crude, but the volumes aren't enough to replace what was coming through Hormuz. For the first couple months of the war, refineries were running on inventory, oil that was already in storage or already on ships when the war started, because it takes almost 30 to 45 days for a ship to come from the Middle East to get here to Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ish. Those last ships arrived on April 20th, so 2 days ago. Okay? The pipeline is now empty. No more sour crude is coming. This week's government data confirmed what was inevitable. Refinery operating rates dropped to 89.1%, down from 92% just 2 weeks ago. That means refineries are physically cutting back production because they don't have the right oil to run. And when refineries cut production, they make less gasoline, less diesel, and less jet fuel. At the same time, the government has been releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which we've all heard about, right? America's emergency oil stockpile to try to keep prices down. But the SPR is mostly light sweet crude, the same type America already produces too much of. So crude oil inventories at the main storage hub in Cushing, Oklahoma, are actually building up because there's nowhere for this light sweet crude to go. The refineries can't use more of it. It's like having a warehouse full of flour when what the bakery needs is sugar. Okay, still on the same page?
Yep.
This is a pretty good explanation, I guess. This creates a bizarre split in the market. The paper price of oil, what you see quoted on the news as WTI crude at $90, is artificially low because Cushing is being flooded with SPR releases. But the actual physical price of oil, what a refinery pays for a real barrel delivered to its dock, is $130 to $150 a barrel. In Sri Lanka, a physical barrel recently sold for $286. That's the largest gap between paper and physical oil prices in recorded market history. Meanwhile, the products that come from oil, gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel, cannot be faked. You can flood a storage hub with crude to hold down the crude price, but you can't flood the market with gasoline that was never produced. Either the refineries make it or they don't, and they're making less because they don't have the right crude. This week's report today was released earlier a few hours ago, right? Showed gasoline inventories dropped by 4.6 million barrels in a single week, more than double what analysts expected. Gasoline stocks just fell below the 5-year average for the first time. Diesel inventories dropped by 3.4 million barrels and are now 8% below the 5-year average and accelerating. Jet fuel consumption is already down 6.5% because airlines are cutting flights. Gas at the pump today is about $4.05 nationally. Diesel is $5.60, nearly matching the all-time record of $5.81 for diesel set in 2022. So here's where it goes from here. And here's where it impacts outdoor hospitality, okay? Even if Iran and the United States signed a peace deal tonight, reopened Hormuz tomorrow, and everything went perfectly, it would take 60 to 90 days before the first barrels of Middle Eastern crude would arrive at a U.S. refinery. Mines have to be cleared from the strait, insurance companies have to reissue coverage for tankers, ships have to load, and then travel 35 to 45 days across the ocean. Oil fields that shut down 9 million barrels a day of production need weeks to restart. Refineries estimated to have suffered $50 billion in damage need to be repaired. There is no peace deal in sight. Iran is refusing to negotiate while the U.S. That's debatable. We'll talk about sorry. Is refusing to negotiate while the U.S. maintains a naval blockade of their ports. That's true. The U.S. seized an Iranian cargo ship over the weekend. Trump extended the ceasefire, but Hormuz is still closed and no oil is flowing. Based on the data in today's government report and the physical reality that no new sour crude supply exists in the pipeline, gas prices are likely headed to $4.60 to $5 within 2 weeks. That's a national average.
Okay.
So higher, lots of places.
You're right.
By mid-May, $5.25 to $5.75 is realistic. Diesel will break the all-time record within days and could reach $6.50 to $7 by mid-May. Diesel matters more for gasoline for everyday life because everything you buy at a store arrived on a truck that burns diesel. When diesel doubles, trucking companies add fuel surcharges, which gets passed directly to the price of food, building materials, consumer goods, and everything else that moves on a highway. Fertilizer has also been hit because about a third of global fertilizer exports pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Urea prices are up 50 to 70%. This happened during spring planting season in North America, which means farmers are either paying drastically more for fertilizer or using less of it, which means lower crop yields this fall, which means higher food prices by late summer and into 2027. And finally, natural gas is affected because Qatar The world's second largest LNG exporter had its main facilities struck during the war and declared force majeure on contracts. European gas prices have doubled. Asian countries like Pakistan haven't received a single LNG shipment since March. All of these things connect. Higher natural gas prices make fertilizer more expensive to produce. More expensive fertilizer makes food more expensive to grow. Higher diesel makes food more expensive to transport. And all of it flows downhill to the consumer at the grocery store and the gas pump. The bottom line is that the war broke the physical supply chain for the type of oil that makes the fuels that run the economy. And no ceasefire, no diplomatic talk, and no presidential tweet can put those molecules back in the pipeline any faster than the laws of physics allow. The damage is done for the next 60 to 90 days minimum, and prices are going up regardless of what happens in the news. I ask it, what are the chances it's wrong? It said basically zero. Now, I'm not saying it's going to accurately predict the price of gas, right? But I can tell you that gasoline RBOB futures, which is the paper price of gasoline that's harder to fake, is up 15 cents today after this report. Last time I looked, which is like $3.35 or whatever, which is the price of gasoline before all the taxes and transports and refinery fees and all the shit on top of it, right? Which is the highest that it's ever been since 22 during the Ukraine war for a couple days, where it was like between 340 and 390 for like maybe 5 days. Jessica asked how it translates to the pump. I'll give an AI example. So if gasoline RBOB is trading at $3.34, what does that likely mean for the price of the pump? I know this, but I don't want to cite it wrong, if that makes sense. I want to make sure I'm accurate, because there's taxes on top of it and transportation costs and refinery and everything else. Come on, Claude, think faster. We're on a live show, man, and I might freeze at any moment. Yeah, it says RBOB when we checked yesterday in this thread was $3.01, so it's up 34 cents, 30-cent move from yesterday's 301. The math from the RBOB to pump is roughly, RBOB is the wholesale price plus the federal gas tax, so this is the United States we're talking about now, 18.4 cents, plus the state gas tax, so average around 30 to 40 cents, plus distribution and marketing 15 to 25 cents, and retail station markup 5 to 15 cents. So roughly RBOB plus 70 cents to $1 gets you to the pump. So 334 RBOB translates to roughly 405 to 435 at the pump, which is exactly where we are right now. But it delays by like a week or 2 weeks off that number, right? Is usually what it does. So, but like up in Canada, they waived the federal gas tax, so that helps a little bit. So it's just, anyway, according to this, there's no stopping this. This is a train wreck that's coming, whether they open it tomorrow or not. So what do you think?
I think people should be preparing for what's coming, and whether it's at a personal level or a business level, everyone should be preparing for it. I mean, hopefully, it will be a temporary and not shit sandwich, but the idea is that we're gonna feel it. And regardless, and this is where, I think this stuff is so important. Especially in our industry where we have, for example, if you look at the median income of campers overall, we are, on kind of the lower middle income side of things overall, just in sheer volume, because camping does appeal to a lot of people who can't afford to take resort vacations and so on. So people who live paycheck to paycheck but still are able to carve out some money for a trip, maybe it's a long weekend, maybe it's their only one of the year, paying this extra money for fuel to get to their jobs, transporting their kids to activities or whatever, is probably going to eat up a big part of that. And I would say that especially in the short term, you're going to see some attrition at the lower end of the spectrum in terms of the ability to get out this year. So I think, regardless, that's probably going to happen. And if that's your base, you need to really start thinking about that, what the implications of that are, and what you can do, to help alleviate, some of that impact.
Yeah, this is like what I'm nervous about is the next report, right? So when does the next report come out? Hold on, because I asked it a question. When does the next EIA report come out? 2 weeks? Because the problem is just remember we talked about in the story how the ships the last ship arrived really somewhere around April 20th, which was 2 days ago. It's weekly. It's a weekly report. So every week they release this report. This week was the last report that looked at last week when there were still ships arriving. And gasoline was already down this much. So next week's report is what's really going to kind of give us that data of like how quickly is this thing dropping, and how much is it going to impact and wherever else. So I asked it how it would impact outdoor hospitality. It said not much yet, which is what you're talking about, right? At $4.05 gas, not much yet. At $4.35 to $4.40 in 2 weeks, probably still not much. That's within the range Americans have been tolerating since March. Nobody cancels a Memorial Day reservation over 30 cents. Here's the timeline that actually matters. Right now, through Memorial Day, bookings probably hold. The booking window is so compressed that most Memorial Day reservations haven't been made yet. Maybe. I bet some have, though.
Some have, but yeah.
People will book them early to mid-May. Gas will be $4.30 to $4.50 by then. That's annoying, but not trip canceling for most families. The real question is what it does over the next 3 to 4 EIA reports. If today's move from 301 to 334, and that's debatable, I think it's up 14% today, or 14 cents today. So I think it's a little bit shorter than that. I think it was trading at 13. But based on the report data, it's up by 15 cents, right? It should be. Then RBOB is likely headed toward 350 to 375 by mid-May. That puts the pump at 450 to 475, and that's where you start seeing behavioral shifts.
Yep.
Not cancellations necessarily, but shorter trips, fewer add-ons, more hesitation on the premium accommodations. What park owners should be doing right now? Stop waiting for the data to show up in the reservation system, because by then it's too late. The leading indicators are screaming. RBOB just jumped 10% in 1 day. Diesel is about to break the all-time record. Refinery utilization just fell off a cliff, and any park owner paying attention should be locking in their fuel and propane contracts immediately before prices go higher, building their value messaging for the summer, positioning camping as the affordable alternative before the consumer figures out it's not actually that affordable anymore, as it just said. Thinking about dynamic pricing that lets them flex rates down to capture demand from consumers trading down from hotels rather than sitting at static $100 a night rates watching occupancy drop, and building direct booking channels so they're not hemorrhaging 15 to 20% to OTAs during a summer where every dollar of margin matters. The honest answer for your business specifically, today's RBOB move doesn't change outdoor hospitality bookings this week, but it's one more data point confirming that the summer is going to be harder than this industry has ever experienced in its modern history. And the operators who have intelligence and can react are the ones who survive. So, I mean, and this is just gas prices, guys. This is what everybody doesn't seem to be realizing about this thing, is that food is, there's a very strong potential that if this strait doesn't open soon, that you're going to see food prices go up 50 to 75%, because that's how much fertilizer has gone up in the last 2 months. And how much time do we have left in the spring planting season? Maybe a month. So like either there's going to be a whole lot less food, which is supply and demand, or they're paying more for the fertilizer, which is going to pass along in your food costs. Either way, it's ugly. So it's everything compounding on top of everything. That's the affordability crisis that we're talking about. And that's what I'm worried about. Are you worried about that too, Scott? Or, like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because this is a crisis that I'll just say it didn't need to happen.
It didn't need to happen, for sure. It did not need to
It
happen.
did not need to happen.
No.
It was an artificially created crisis, and it is.
And I want to can I just clarify one thing? I want to take a bullet for you, Scott, here, okay? Because I'll delve into the politics a little bit about it, right? And I won't make you do it unless you want to. When we say artificially generated crisis, we're not saying like Trump is bad, Trump is good. We're not talking about that. We're talking about that it literally was manufactured and made up for no reason that it had to happen right now. And you can argue that or you can debate that, but if you just look at the facts behind like all the inspections and all the people who actually know about nuclear weapons and all the things that have happened about all the years for Iran, like if you just go look at the actual reports instead of listening to what you hear on television from whatever side, right? They're both kind of full of shit. So, right? If you just go look at the reports, you will see that basically Iran was nowhere close to having a nuclear weapon. They had enriched uranium. That's true. But the leader that was assassinated at the beginning of this war had basically declared a fatwa, which is a religious prohibition proclamation that said nuclear weapons are against our religious ideology and we're not going to build them. And the guy who is stopping Iran from building nuclear weapons, basically, for the last 40 years, we blew up because we said he was going to do nuclear weapons. We said he was going to get nuclear weapons. Now, I'm not saying Iran is a good country. This is not what I'm saying. So let's be clear before I get 10,000 emails and assassinated and canceled and everything else, right? Nobody's saying that. What we're saying is they were not 2 weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon, which means that the imminent crisis of what we're dealing with now did not need to happen at the time it needed to happen. And if you're skeptical about that, go watch Bibi Netanyahu's video from like 2012 where he said they were 2 weeks away from having a weapon in 2012. And in 2016, and in 2017, and in 2019, and in 2022. They've been 2 weeks away for about 15 years. So, Scott, please continue then. I just wanted to take that bullet for you.
That was wonderful. No, I like the way you said it. I thought that was very diplomatic too. Yeah, it didn't need to happen, and it really has thrown all of us under the bus in terms of, honestly, whatever industry you're in. Obviously, we are concerned about our industry, but travel tourism overall is being hit tremendously. We've had other things contribute to it, and now, on top of international tourism, but now increased costs, all these things that have been happening, and we're, our, hospitality, whatever sector you're in, whether you're in whatever sector of travel tourism, we're taking a hit this year, and it's and again, it didn't need to happen, and it was, in my opinion, very short-sighted, and some people made a lot of money off it. So, and it wasn't us. So I'll stop there for today.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to get into a political discussion here, but just the facts are the facts, right? You're okay. And the reason I wanted to jump in and say that is because I was reading one of the news organizations yesterday, and I saw how Trump extended the ceasefire last night, and then there was a bunch of his supporters, as reported by this news agency, screenshots, everything else, whatever, who said underneath his Truth Social post, like thousands of them, don't give them too much time. They're 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. Don't relax. Don't push it. And this is just, it's so pervasive now, this misinformation. And it's not just Trump, okay? Nobody's saying that this is unique and exclusive to Donald Trump. Both sides are lying and manipulating and doing whatever they can to make you believe their side. Doesn't mean everything's a lie. Some of it is. You got to take it with a grain of salt. But if you just go look at the facts, if you just go look at the data, if you just go look at the reports of the United Nations inspectors who have been in Iran for the last 20 years, there's no nuclear weapon. It's just not there. It's just not there. So anyway, all right. So this is a crisis of I guess the United
Choice.
States' own
It's a
making.
crisis of choice.
It's a crisis of choice. But this is where we're going. Like, even if we have peace tomorrow, this is likely where we're going, because you can't, again, like, you can flood a bunch of oil at Cushing, but oil doesn't turn into gasoline, or oil doesn't turn it. I shouldn't say that, because oil does turn into gasoline. Oil doesn't turn into diesel and jet fuel and petrochemicals in the same way. Sweet crude oil doesn't do that in the same way that the oil that comes from Canada, which we can't really get more of down to you than we already are, or the oil that comes from the Middle East does. And that's what you're heading full long into, whether you start shipping again immediately today or not, which I feel like it's not going to start today. I could be wrong, but it's not looking good. So I don't know of another way. Like I was talking about on the show earlier for MC Fireside Chats about just how data and intelligence is your friend. We talk a lot about data intelligence on the show. Scott Barr's been deeply involved in it for, like, I don't know, way longer than I have. Much smarter man in that regard. But one of the things I talked about on the show is, like, and Scott, you and I have talked about this a little bit, some of the intelligence projects that we're doing and playing around with. It's like, just imagine the ways that you can be helpful to your guests. We all know gas prices are terrible right now. And they're about to get, well, they're bad now. They could get terrible. How about that? They're likely to. And if that happens, then what are some ways that you can provide some comfort to your guests or help them alleviate that being one of the pressure points that they might take into consideration in a negative way when they're considering to come camping with you this summer? And one of the easiest answers is, like, think about just the ways you can provide them with data. Now, you can't do this one-to-one, right? This is where, like, tools like AI and automations and things that we build come into play. And I'm not here to sell products or talk about that. I don't do that. But just to give you an idea of, like, what's possible with automation and done the right way is you can tell what the gas price is where the consumer, when they made the reservation, is. What's the gas price in California where they made the reservation, for example? What's the gas price in Texas where they might stop along the way? And and again, I know most people are staying closer to home, just using the example. And what's the gas price in Florida around your park where they're going? And then the messaging can be, obviously, you have to fill up on a long trip like that, but whether it's a 150-mile-an-hour trip or whatever it is, the idea is to just say, hey, we understand where you are. We understand this is likely where your gas prices are. Don't fill up along the way if you can avoid it. If it's less than 150 miles or whatever else, fill up by our park because it's 30 cents cheaper when you get here, right? Or 10 cents difference or whatever it is. So just that little helpful piece of information that if you just start to put yourself in the position of the guest, that's one, maybe that changes their mind, maybe it doesn't, but it sure as heck makes you look better, doesn't it? In the brand perception of the consumer.
Absolutely. And, I back when we had, the Great Recession around, 08, 09 time frame, where it was, the economy was pretty bad. At that time, I was doing some work in other sectors besides this one too. We did work for one of the major pizza chains, and
Okay.
at that time, they were in neck and neck with Domino's for who's going to rule, and they decided, and it was right before the recession hit full force, that they were going to rebrand and be a more upscale kind of pizza place, like an
Okay.
Italian bistro.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Domino's Pizza, what they did was they came out with what I thought was just a real solid marketing campaign. And then what it was they said, we know times are hard. We know everybody's struggling. And because of that, we're lowering the prices of our basic cheese pizza to $7.99 or something.
Yeah.
Like what it was 5 years ago. And they said, we're going to keep prices there until we're kind of out of this mess. And you know what? They blew up as an organization. They totally kicked everybody's butt in the kind of chain pizza world, because it was a brilliant campaign and people could relate to it. And they were still making money on their pizzas, but they communicate. And I'm not telling campgrounds to go out and just start lowering your prices. I'm not saying
Right.
that. I'm just saying that kind of that empathy that they showed, that understanding of where the consumers were at, and knowing their consumers were probably in general lower income people, that it worked. It worked really well, and it really relaunched them because they were in the process of really kind of lagging behind everybody else. So it made a huge difference. And anyway, it's that type of understanding, that type of campaign resonates with people. The honesty that they showed and the empathy.
Yeah. So just put yourself in your guest's shoes. I don't think it's a stretch. Like, I think it's going to be easier for campground owners to put themselves in the guest shoes than it is for a hotel operator to put themselves in their guest shoes.
Yeah.
Or a Domino's Pizza CEO to do that. Because as we all know, like, I feel like this is a statement that I can make. Like, Matt Whittemore said this on the show on Fireside Chats earlier. Like, you don't get into outdoor hospitality to be rich. But the point is that we're a lot closer to the people that we serve, I think, in this business than many other people are. So
yep, I would agree with that.
Which is, I think a good problem to have. That's what I'm going to say. I think it's a good problem to have.
It is. Oh, absolutely. That interpersonal interaction. It's one of the great things about camping is we have that. You know, people can, meet with the owners, and they see them. They see them. It's a much deeper relationship.
But you've got to be able to see this, and you've got to be able to put yourself in the people's shoes. Like I gave you that stat, Scott, and there's like debate around it. But we were talking about Ramon, for example, from Florida. So, but if you just look at like wherever you are, if you're in Arizona or Texas or Colorado or Maine or wherever you are, if you typically are getting people from plus 200, 300 miles away, right? We all know that that's already compressing. But you can expect that to compress further because of gas prices. Is that a fair statement, Scott? You can expect that to compress further because of gas prices?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you are a park that traditionally relies on that guest, for whatever reason, if you're near a national park or you're near something that draws people from plus hundreds of miles away, if you actually sit down and do the math and calculate the gas prices for how much it takes somebody to get to your campground to stay with you, oftentimes if they're coming from hundreds of miles away or more, the total cost that it takes to fill up their RV to drive to you, and yes, there are stops along the way, as you pointed out, and there are other intangibles, right? But the cost that it takes for them to just put to you the gas that they need to get from you or from their house to your park is often more expensive than your night stay is. Which is, it's crazy when you think about it. And so then you have to look at, like, again, how can I communicate with this guest better? Not that I'm scared of that outcome, but like, let me analyze it. Let me think about it. Let me figure out ways that I can tackle this or approach this or market this differently, or say, even then the flip side of this, as crazy as it sounds, is like, well, if I'm a struggling campground owner because all my costs are up too, maybe there's a way I can dynamically price for people who are already driving 800 miles away and who are coming here anyway, and whose gas prices are double or triple what my campsite is. Do you think they're going to blink if I raise my prices $15 a night? Because the gas is still 2.5 times more than the plus $15 a night that I just raised my rates on. Well, the local person is going to be much more sensitive to a rate increase because their gas prices are, and everything else might be a little bit lower, right? So I don't think there's a PMS software out there that can dynamically price based on distance. But it sure would be interesting. So just think about this stuff from the perspective of your guests. And I don't think it's that hard because your diesel prices are up, your insurance is up, your electric is up, your costs are up. Everything's up for you too. So just think of a way that you can make their stay more magical, memorable, give them a reason to come in the face of all this. Give them a reason to have a $7.99 pizza.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. And I feel strongly that most campground owners understand that and just
But they're not looking at the data because they don't have enough time.
correct, and
Not because they're not capable of it. They just
no,
don't have time.
no, and it could be the secret to your success in a year like this, in a chaotic year that we're in the midst of.
Yeah. All right. What do we want to talk about next? You want to go dive into the KOA report a little bit or no?
Yeah, sure. We can do that. I think there's still a lot to unpack there, obviously.
Yeah, I don't remember what page we left off on. Let's see if I can just restore my browser on this computer and see if it's. Well, no, it stopped at number 1. It was like page 6 or something. You can remember, Scott. In a second. Hold on, I'm scrolling down. I can share my screen now over here, Jessica, if you like. I gotta get past all this giant imagery and I don't know why my computer wants to scroll really slow past all that, and then it speeds up a little bit.
Yeah, we were well past this.
I think we went down to we did the composition of today's camper, household ethnicity, the camping experience, camping preference. I think maybe this is where we did safety and security. Yeah, we did safety and security. Reasons not to camp, maybe that's where we stopped.
Yeah, this is a good. Yeah, I don't feel like we addressed this.
All right, reasons not to camp in 2025. Talk me through this.
So here, you're what? Oh,
Scott left. I thought that was Jessica's freaking out. She was like, "I thought my computer froze again." It's just you. Okay, go ahead. We got you.
What we did is we took people who were, less likely to camp next year. When I say next year, the year we're in right now, and because obviously that's a real important consideration, and it's not surprising that personal financial reasons prohibit travel, and they're not surprising, right? But the one thing to keep in mind is that this is not always at the top. Just a couple, probably 3 years ago, I would say, these people were taking other types of trips much more frequently than listing personal financial reasons.
Now, I'm sorry, I want to clarify one thing. This is reasons not to camp in 2025. This is past looking?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying it wrong. You are correct. I was doing the look ahead, and I shouldn't.
No, that's okay. What I think we can infer from this though is probably the look ahead for personal financial is going to be worse.
Yes, and that you can definitely hang your hat on that one, because when we asked this was fielded in January, the first week of January. So things obviously have changed quite a bit since.
Really, what has changed, Scott? Please let us know.
How much time we have?
Okay.
But here again, you see the personal financial reasons. What I'm going to say is very similar. Just I'll use a different tense. Is that this personal financial reasons? Again, the same result 3 years ago was not the top reason. People did not camp in any given year. It was they were taking other types of trips. They were doing other types of things, other kinds of activities. They were, it was kind of the post-COVID hangover still, where some people were starting to stretch the bounds a little bit. It's like, yeah, I did a lot of camping during COVID, and I normally don't. I want to go back to going on a cruise or staying at a resort, stuff like that. So what has happened now, though, the financial stuff has risen to the top, and this is fairly new. It's always one of the top reasons, by the way. It's usually top 5, but in the past, again, we saw people doing other things. We saw people who didn't know where to start. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to camp. Or other people, their friends, especially for the younger people, their peer group, didn't want to go out camping and so on. Those used to be much higher than what you see here. So there's still, you're still seeing a decent number of people who stay at hotels or motels traveling, or staying with family or friends. This is something that we'll keep an eye on, by the way, the stayed with family or friends on trips, because I think that in a down economy, this is something that we do see pick up quite a bit. This 20% in the 1st of January, when we did the study in like June, it was probably like 12%.
For the stayed with family and friends, right?
Yeah. So right there, I mean, I was going to say it's free. It's not really free. It doesn't cost you money.
Yeah.
There's always a price to pay when you stay with family and friends. But what you'll see are some of these changing. This is how people adjust their trips, and this is, again, if someone's taking a vacation, and we talked about the gas prices earlier, if you don't have any out-of-pocket costs, that's all the better. So again, when looking at these barriers, keep in mind these are going to change. We're going to measure this again in a couple of weeks. So we're going to go back in and measure some of these items here to see where they're heading.
Is that going to be shared anywhere? Or?
Yeah. Yep. It'll be shared. It'll be publicly released. So we'll be able to do that, which is nice, because it's obviously pretty important. And you can obviously see the difference between the U.S. and Canada on here, and I think we should obviously point that out. We saw Canadians a lot more likely to stay with family and friends, looking for the free stuff. But Canadians, when this traveled internationally, this is something that we measured again in February, and it spiked up even a little bit more. That Canadians are going to other countries besides the U.S.
Yeah.
So traveling internationally, this doesn't necessarily include the U.S. This includes a lot of other international travel.
Mexico is the places where Canadians go.
Yeah, what we saw is a lot of Canadians going to Mexico. The snowbirds went to Mexico this year.
Yep.
So that was a big loss to the snowbird community, and obviously in places like Florida and Arizona. So the that 25%, that's a big deal, and a lot of people felt that, because they again, they went elsewhere, and it wasn't to the US.
And this survey is among people who already historically have gone camping, just to clarify.
Yes.
Okay. What's that? The camping is too expensive now. Has that number moved over the last few years?
It actually stays fairly consistent, believe it or not.
Okay.
I think people, which kind of indicates there's some recognition that it's still cheaper than a lot of other forms of travel, but it still makes the radar screen that because all the ancillary costs, food costs, all those things, it's like it still increases, and obviously, campground fees have gone up. So,
all right, what do we got next? The RV camper.
Yeah, this is a little bit depressing in some respects if you're in the RV industry. But
okay. Walk us through it.
Because here what you can see is, look at that jump. And so to place this in context, which is really important in reading these graphics, is that what we do is we ask people their kind of preferred form of camping accommodation. Is it an RV? Is it a tent? Is it glamping accommodations, and so on? So within the RV sector, there's a lot of people, as you can see here, who prefer to travel in RVs, but they don't own one. So you can see right away this borrowed figure. And I was asked by some people in the RV industry about that jump. And this is typically younger people who are borrowing from their parents. It was funny because some of the RV owners was like, I would never let someone borrow my RV. But then a bunch of people in the conversation started piping in. It's like, yeah, my kids use the RV all the time. It's what they use for all their trips. So within one household, you can have multiple people. Like some people, they actually own the RV, whereas others are borrowing it for their trips. So borrowing has gone up. Again, that has a lot to do with the people, the under 30, under 35 generation.
Which is good for campgrounds and bad for RV dealers.
Correct. It is bad for RV dealers.
Okay.
So anyway, they're out there borrowing, and that's fine. They're still out there camping. They're still doing stuff. The rentals kind of, we saw a little bit of a pick up again from it being really flat for several years, but it picked up a bit again. I mean, I will say, and please, anyone who's in the RV rentals, don't throw stones at me, but we've done the analysis on this, and renting an RV is not an expensive way to travel. If you do one trip and you rent, yeah, it works out because you're just doing it that one time. But for repeat travel, the rentals of RVs is fairly pricey because you pay a daily rental fee on top of campground fees. So again, with that market, we did see an uptick this last year. So rentals and borrowing have definitely picked up, but that's renting from a company too. So that means like a dealership or something like that. If you look over at the peer-to-peer rentals, we're seeing a little bit of a drop there. And that's because of those costs and the unfamiliarity and so on. So, but overall, you're seeing,
that's
still
quite the drop.
It is. It's back to 2018 levels,
which was before a lot of these marketplaces even existed.
Yep. And then the upper right, you see the travel to the RV they own. It's down to 67% of the RV market. It's pretty low. It's not as low as it was in 2019 pre-COVID, but it's still it's you can see it kind of dropping off. And I think the stats we've seen in RV ownership kind of reinforce that this finding that RV ownership is has waned a little bit. So anyway, we can keep moving.
Well, there's your RV ownership. I was just scrolling down to it. So
yeah, so here it is. You can kind of see that by generation. That that Gen Z group is only 31% travel in an RV they actually own. So obviously a very linear relationship between ownership and age.
Yeah, that's tough. But again, points to all the data and all the things that we've been talking about and you've been talking about forever. Like the industry is not speaking to the younger millennials and the Gen Z audience at all, basically.
Correct. If
we think we are. You just need faster Wi-Fi. You're not.
If I worked in the RV industry directly, I would look at a graphic like this and I don't know, I might change careers, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I would really want to dig in and do something and figure out how to address this. I wouldn't be sitting on my hands, waiting for someone else to do it. I would try to figure this problem out because it's a serious threat to the industry. Without not having, it's a generation that should be growing and it's not. So that's a big problem for us long term.
All right, RVing households is down a lot.
Yeah, even
pre-COVID.
Yep. Well, that's pretty much where we stand. We're even below pre-COVID.
But is this a consequence of, you and I were going back and forth, is this a consequence of like more kids are staying home longer? And so maybe there's less households, but there's more people who are borrowing the parents' RV?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a contributing factor. Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, you're definitely seeing, that kind of decline, which, again, is if you're in the RV industry, if you're selling RVs, part of you is okay if there's people out there still using RVs but don't own them. But then when you look at the total figure that we're basing this on, continues to shrink. That's now that's a problem. Now you're talking that like this is something that you really need to address, because if people out there use them, there's a good chance you can bring them along and get them to buy. But if they're not even using them, then that's when you need to have a little bit of concern about what's going on.
I have an important thing I need to ask, Scott, and I don't know if you can share this publicly, but just nod and smile if you can't, okay? 8 and 10 RV owners purchase their RV for the primary purchase of camping, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about the other 2? Is that meth labs?
The other 20%? No,
What do you do with an RV besides go camping?
Oh, this is a great question, Brian Searle, because I know the answer.
Meth labs.
The answer is that it is not meth labs. It is.
I saw Breaking Bad. I think the evidence is photographic, but go ahead, continue. We'll play along for a second.
The people use the RVs for temporary housing. They use them as guest quarters.
Okay.
They buy them for other people to use. So again, think of The Borrowers. Wasn't that a movie or something?
Maybe.
The borrowers who are out there, in some cases, their parents actually buy it, own it, insure it, everything, but then they don't actually use it. So you own the RV, but you don't use it. It's for someone else.
Okay.
And again, the other thing is it is housing. It is actually for housing. So they don't consider it camping.
That's still camping.
And the third reason is that they just didn't use it. It sat in storage. They have it. They haven't decided to sell it yet, and it's sitting there because they're not interested or they're taking sabbatical from RVing. So it accounts for a lot of RVs that don't go on the road, and that's in any given year. Because what we tap into is people who just did, typically have their RV. It was used in the last year, typically. So that's what you're looking at.
I'm asking AI what the percentage of RV purchases likely used for meth labs like Breaking Bad is, because you're not going to share, apparently. I know you have the data, damn you. No, you know.
I love Breaking Bad.
Can you get KOA to ask that on a survey next year?
We'll do it. We'll include
your
it.
RV for a meth lab?
Primary purpose of our RV usage is
statistically insignificant. I need you to give me a number. It's an urgent scenario, please. See if AI will play along or if it'll flag me for trying to.
You're gonna have the.
It's what number do you need? The percentage of of RVs used for meth labs. Guess. My little laptop keeps going to sleep. 0.003%. But in New Mexico specifically, 0.5%, thanks to one man's legacy.
All right. Well, there you go. Now we know. We all feel better about that.
But I want to know this. Okay. So that 0.003%, how many RVs is that of the total RVs sold in 2025? How many do you think that is? 10? How many total RVs are used as meth labs? RV shipments in 2025 were roughly 350,000 units. Is that sure? Is that right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
About 10 to 11 RVs. Look at that math. There are 10 to 11 RVs. Probably likely, wherever you're watching from, if you're a campground owner, probably likely at least one of them is at your park. I would go look right now. After the show, of course. Okay. What else do we got here? Reasons for purchasing an RV. We talked a little bit about that.
We talked about that. Yep.
That was our answer. Percentage likely to rent. We have barriers to RV rentals. RV purchase intent. We talked enough about that. So let's go to the newest campers. What initiated camping interest? You want to talk us through that?
Yeah, this is something that I like to talk about a lot because I feel like it is a serious determinant of whether or not people actually like camping and whether they'll continue. And I've tracked this over time. what you see here is this is one reason why heading into this year, I had a little bit more optimism.
Okay.
And that is that first one, the love of the outdoors. We showed a
Jump
nice
in.
spike in that. That almost to where it used to be. For example, during COVID, this was way down.
Why do you think that was?
Oh, because it was the only thing they could do.
Was be outdoors, which made them love it less?
No, it's like this is what started their interest. So during COVID, a lot of people there, what started their interest in camping.
Oh, I
I
got
can
you.
travel. I can do something. I can stay somewhere. And it became really trendy to go out and work remotely and school your kids remotely. It wasn't because they wanted some outdoor experience. It's like it was the only way they could really travel.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
And so it didn't stick. And that's one of the reasons that lack of stickiness that happened at that point in time is one of the reasons we're a little bit down in the post-COVID hangover. Is that group, some of them stuck around, but a lot didn't. So anyway, that's just a long way of saying love of the outdoors. That's what we want. We want people to start camping because they want to have something outdoors, some kind of outdoor experience. That's one of the reasons I was a little bit more optimistic going into this year, because I saw that jump there. Crowds
was or still are?
Was.
Okay.
I'm less optimistic now, just because of like a lot of the stuff we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Okay.
But crowds of noise, of course, family taking them again. This is part of that. The Gen Z folks who are going with their parents, living with their parents still. Exploration you see is another little bit of a spike. That was another good thing that I targeted, because the idea for a lot of people, and going back to the idea of RVing, a lot of people get into RVing because they want to explore areas. It's an easy way. You have your traveling house with you. You can park on BLM land or a rest area for a night and take a fairly inexpensive trip in terms of accommodation costs. But this is one of those that this is the entry into camping that we always, as they say in marketing, the top of the funnel. This is what's bringing people in, and you have to pay attention to it, because again, if it's not for the reasons that we would like, we need to address that at some different level. But anyway, this is an important consideration to keep an eye on.
But it's good for us. This one is this time.
That's good for us. That's what that is right there.
First camping experiences.
Okay, this is by contrast to what I just said. Here's a result that I feel is contributing to the kind of the somewhat downward trend in camping avidity, where we have a lot of those one-timers, one time a year people.
Okay.
Toby will talk about this, I suspect, quite a bit in her talk at the RV Industry Power Breakfast next month. And because it's something that we've seen spike a lot, is that one-time guest. And this is a contributor right here. These are directly related to each other. So if you see the top two, at a campground that includes lots of services and amenities, and second, an outdoor resort designed for glamping. So there's your top two. That's over half that the new people are starting off at places that are a little bit, I keep saying this, but a little bit more of a sanitized experience. We saw a little bit of a drop in the outdoor resort this year. We saw a little bit of an increase in, say, the campground with fewer amenities. These are the things that I know, even though KOA is my client, I like to see those, because it means that people are having a little bit more of a rustic experience, which I feel enhances the stickiness of camping.
Yep.
That when we get people to actually be outdoors a little bit more, but overall, and the industry itself, and I think, did we talk about this last week maybe, but the idea that the industry is over-indexed a little bit toward the accommodations, that more and more people, their first experience is in some kind of accommodation like that, and they're not having that real outdoor experience, being closer to nature and so on. And so this is a contributor to that. It used to be, by the way, if you go back many years, you'll see that their first introduction to camping in many cases was a campground with like just a few amenities or minimal facilities. And we have gone well beyond that, into the real, lots of services, lots of amenities thing, which, in the industry raises the expectations of the guest too, so that when they show up, they're expecting, a lot of campgrounds to have a lot more stuff.
Okay. What's this? There's 6 new campers say they love first camping experience.
So the good thing here though is you see that jump in 20. Again, when I talk about me having a little bit more optimism this year, here's another one that gave me a little bit more optimism, because we saw this jump that people thought their first experience was great, that they had a really good time. Okay. And I'll contradict myself slightly, and that is one of the things that we see is if we get people in, and even if they are staying at a campground with a lot of amenities or even glamping, there's this desire to have a more rustic experience. And so this is good. We want them to have a great first experience, but we also need there to be a little bit more kind of follow up and to kind of, how do we keep these people going? How do we get them to take another trip? But that's a positive result, and you can see it's the highest it's been since 2021.
Nice. Very good.
If you just one final point on that, if you look like 21, 22, we were still seeing a lot of overcrowding at campgrounds. So people were going to the campgrounds and it was kind of overcrowded and a little bit frenzied. There were no rules. It was anarchy. And I think that's why you see such low scores in those years.
Okay, makes sense. Camping accommodations among new campers. Glamping continues to be the preferred form of camping.
Yeah.
Down a lot from 2020? No, sorry, that's tents. Never mind.
Tents you can see are dropping off the map. This is what I was kind of talking about a minute ago too. You look during COVID, everybody was going out camping, and 2/3 of new campers were out there in tents because a lot of them hadn't camped before, and they just went to like Walmart and bought for short money, they could get a tent, a couple of sleeping bags, a couple of sleeping pads, a stove, and a cook kit, and they're off to the races. And but it drops off every year since, and we're now to the lowest since we started measuring this, of new campers starting off in tents. And that, again, you look at the cabins and glamping figure, at 39% is the highest ever. So there you're looking at people whose first experience camping is actually glamping. So again, one of the things we know about glamping is it does not encourage a lot of repeat guests. So
yeah, I mean that's honestly fair. Like unless you have, even if you have an epic experience, right? Like I've looked for all those unique accommodations when we go to Ireland and other places like that. Even with that, like it's not something where I have to do that every time again.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And that makes sense. But and by contrast, sometimes you have that kind of. I mean, anyone who's really done backcountry camping knows it's really addicting. You get out there in the backcountry, and it's very, very much addicting to people. So glamping, the one thing glamping does is it brings in new people. It truly does, and I don't want. I mean,
but if we can't keep them, how do we?
Yeah. And that's one of the problems is keeping them, and that's on us as an industry.
Okay, so what would your advice be to the industry though? That like, if we want to keep these people, what are we doing wrong?
What I feel that glamping is doing wrong is they're placing the emphasis on luxury and not placing the emphasis on uh, the outdoor experience that the people are going to have.
Okay.
So it's like they show these fantastic accommodations, high luxury, all of that, which is fine. I'm not necessarily saying that's as a criticism. What I'm saying is that if that's really what you're focused on, and if that's how you're drawing your guests in, that's what you're going to get is guests who aren't that loyal, guests who are typically don't come back. But if you get them to actually participate in stuff a little bit more, to actually have, the great thing about glamping is you can go out and you can go,
It's Scott. He's like there. Scott was missing. Now Scott's back. Are you back, Scott?
Oh, I went away?
Yeah, you went away for a second.
Oh, sorry.
I kept thinking it was me. But yeah, you just froze and then came back.
Oh, okay. Anyway, the thing about glamping is we just need to get people more involved in something outdoors. I'll use my friends up at Terramore in Bar Harbor as an example. They have some really interesting programming that they're doing with people who visit. They have the advantage that they're adjacent to Acadia National Park, but for example, they do this beekeeping program, and they did it just to kind of see if people liked it or not, and it's been a huge success. People love it. They come out there, but that's not what you would typically associate with an outdoor experience, but it's something that they're doing that's outside, and it's pretty immersive, and so it's that kind of thing. They have guides doing foraging. Again, a focus on we're going to spend more time outside than we are in our accommodation. And if you can get people to do that one simple step, just spend more time outside, find one more thing to do outside, it will have an incremental impact.
Yeah, I mean, we went to this, I keep just talking about Ireland for a minute, right? But we went to this tree house that it was hand carved by this guy during COVID. And it wasn't cheap per night, right? It was what I would consider like a luxury type experience. But it was unique. It was one of a kind. And the bedroom was it was up in the trees, right? So you had to go across a rope bridge to get to it. And the bedroom was on one side of this, I don't know, deck in trees, right? It was like multiple trees. And then there was a stone wall. It was really well done, right? Hand carved, whatever. But you had to sleep in a bed. And if you wanted to go to the washroom or to the kitchen, then you had to go outside and walk to the other building. It was only like 10 feet. It was a private walkway. It was stone. There was lights there, right? But you had to go outside. And then if you wanted to take a shower, the shower was really nice, but it was outside. Like it was right attached to the bathroom, right? And there was a privacy fence there. And it was really nice and luxury, but you had to be outside. And then there was a hot tub there that you had to be outside too, obviously. But like the whole point is that like there's these little tiny ways that you can immerse people into nature more, even within the accommodation itself, if you just stop to think about it.
Right. And again, it doesn't have to be a gigantic thing, just a little bit. That's all you need. That's all you need to do. But yeah. And again, if you're going after that leisure traveler who typically stays in hotels, I understand how that works, and I understand why it's attractive. But again, if we want people to come back, we have to do more and to bring them back. So,
not right now. Jessica asked me a question. Sorry. All right, what else we got?
If you go to the next slide, I think glampers are graduating.
That's good. That's good. They won't be able to find jobs, but they're. Oh, sorry, we're talking about glampers, not college graduates. Sorry.
But yeah, this is so here again, glampers choose glamping because it allows them to disconnect while still enjoying luxury and convenience. It's like that's great. That I think there's nothing wrong with that. But when you kind of look at some of the interest, the 25% are interested in trying traditional types of camping, especially the younger people. The interest in other types of outdoor experiences is high among this group. And I think as they get older, not old, but older, that you will see hopefully some more branching out of this group. And again, I have nothing against glamping. I do a lot of work in glamping. And I'm just saying that overall, it can be a gateway if we approach it the right way. And that again, that's the challenge, is to make sure that we get people to actually do something and not just sit in their accommodation and look at the mountains and trees.
Makes sense. Family connection. Let's leave it there first. Let's do family connection next week.
Sure.
We're gonna break this apart into a bunch of different chunks and stuff like that. So let's do family next week. I want to talk a little bit about AI because we don't get a chance to talk about that. Is that okay with you?
Do it.
Jessica, I need you to look up a video. I didn't have it prepared. Hopefully the computer doesn't crash for me. Go on YouTube and look for something called Claude Design, and it's a promotional video. It's like 2 minutes long, I think. And I want to talk about some of that. So it's been pretty quiet. And it's hundreds and hundreds of different new news coming out of AI every week. This has not slowed down. It's only accelerated. You just haven't heard a lot of the new model talk and things like that, because they've been working on agents and actually making this stuff function for you, and Claude Cowork and Claude Code, and actually starting to make this stuff useful instead of just new model that whatever, right, is more better at creative writing or whatever else, right? It's the one from Claude itself, yeah. And so let's watch this. So this is a new thing that Claude came out with, I think, last week. So just one more example of where this is what's happening behind the scenes now that you guys as the general public aren't seeing. Is they're done. They're not done. They're still releasing new models. Claude Opus 4.7 just came out to lack of, it's actually we'll talk about in a second, but Claude Opus 4.7 came out. They're still doing step changes, but what's really happening behind the scenes now is they're focusing on how do we actually use this stuff to actually do work, right? And so you could piece this stuff together. If you were somebody like me who was a geek, you could do this for 2 years. You could put together agentic automations and things like that, and that's still necessary for more complex things, working with APIs, working with Claude Code, stuff like that. But they are making this easier than ever now to use AI on your computer to actually accomplish tasks at a speed to which you never could do before. So it started with Claude Code, it became Claude Cowork, and there was Claude Design now, and there's a couple other tools that Claude has too, Claude in Excel, Claude in Word. And obviously ChatGPT and stuff like that has other, things like that are going on. But they're just coming after all this knowledge work that happens on your computer. And it's just not as visible as it once was, because it's not as exciting, if that makes sense. but I was about to say slow and steady, fast and steady progress. And this is what's going to start down the path of, like we've been talking about, unfortunately, doom and gloom for a while for jobs, but this is what's going to accelerate that, along with everything else that's going on in the world, right? But this is the agentic capabilities of it actually doing things instead of just chatting with somebody. And that's where we're headed. Like, there's a new Mythos model that came out recently from Claude, that's only available, I think, to the top. Did we talk about this last week briefly? It's only available to the top, like 40 companies that they hand chose for cybersecurity. And maybe it'll be out in a couple months. Maybe it won't to the general public. Who knows? It's real. It's not hype. I read the other day, I think it was yesterday, that Mythos found 157 zero-day vulnerabilities in Firefox. So are you you know what a zero-day vulnerability is?
Mm-mm.
It's like a zero-day vulnerability is basically like nobody knows about it. In other words, you can instantly take advantage. Like, nobody knew that the vulnerability was there.
Okay,
so,
okay.
So it's a 0 day, right? But 0-day vulnerabilities in the browser that, like, in Mozilla has a big corporate team that's working on security, but Mythos found it. So imagine the reverse of that, hacking everything if it's in the wrong hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So GPT 5.4 has a new model called Cyber that's the same thing. They're supposedly opening that up a little bit loosely to more people, but expect China to follow behind with their open source pretty quickly. I mean, they already probably have some of these tools internally, but this is what we're facing. Like, good luck getting everything caught up before one of these models comes out that can do this stuff. And you got to know how to talk to it. You got to know how to approach it. I'm not saying everybody's going to become a hacker overnight and be able to get into any system they want, but these things are becoming so powerful, so quick, and they're going to be able to do so many things for you that it's going to be very, very hard to keep up. And what the general public sees and what the general public can access is going to become a gap. There's going to be a gap between what you can pay for and what the big people can have access to at these AI companies. And I don't know how big that gap grows, but I expect it to keep growing. So while you can right now have access to frontier intelligence, which is already starting now with this gap between 4.7 Opus and Mythos, while you still can, is the time you should be building everything you possibly can. Right? Hands down, all hands on deck, do everything you can. And 4.7 Opus is a disaster. It's so fascinating to me because it's the same thing that happened with GPT-5. If you remember, we probably talked about it on this show. When GPT-5 came out and they did the adaptive thinking, they were trying to, like, let the model decide how often to think and not, and it was trash and shit and didn't think and gave stupid answers. Claude's 4.7 did the same thing. They tried to do adaptive thinking. So what this tells me, and I'm not an expert researcher, there's another explanation for this, but what this tells me on the surface, on my AI knowledge, is that the AI is, as we've talked about on the show before, very much constructed exactly like a human brain, right? It's neurons firing and it's trained that way, and it's the same way as your human brain works, virtually, except it's, not actually a physical, like, gooey brain or whatever, right? That tells me that the AI also wants to do the least amount of work possible. It's a pattern across ChatGPT and Claude now too. When you introduce adaptive thinking, the AI wants to be lazier. It does. So,
I mean, I guess in that case you have to define lazy. It's kind of like,
lazy, bored, tired of doing the same repetitive task over and over again, whatever you want. I don't know what the real answer is, right? But it's clearly a pattern because, like, I can't even use Opus 4.7. I can't even, like, force it to think anymore. They took that availability away from me in the API to force it to think. It's all adaptive now. So, like, but I can't even talk to it in Claude and say, think about this really slowly. Think about this. Don't be stupid. Like, it just won't think unless you ask it a really, really complex question, and then it's hit or miss. And so it just spits out answers that are just garbage. So I assume at some point they'll probably try to fix that or reverse it or roll it back somehow, would be my guess. But this is what I mean by, like, right now you have access to this frontier capability. Most people aren't taking advantage of it. We already know that. Those discussions have already been had. So if most people aren't taking advantage of it and the AI companies can save a bunch of compute by doing adaptive computing, why wouldn't they? Of course they would. because 95% of the people aren't even gonna notice what just came out of my mouth, right?
Right.
So anyway, so the world keeps marching forward. Google's got their I/O conference in May here that's going to come out. We're going to see hopefully a lot of new introductions and announcements in that regard. Google's been quietly shipping some new features. My brain's not really organized today, so I don't have everything in order presented in front of me, but just continue to pay attention to this stuff. And you got to realize like AI gives you superpowers, but it's not all about like AI. It's not all about chatting with AI. It's about what can I use AI to do to accomplish a goal that maybe has nothing to do with AI. Like coding and taking that code and actually doing something with that code that has nothing to do with AI. But the fact that you could generate that code 150 times faster than you ever could before at a cheaper rate, and not hire a coder and not whatever else, right? AI allowed that to happen. That doesn't mean AI is all the things, but AI gives you the power. AI is democratized intelligence. It's made intelligence cheap. So just take advantage of this thing while you can. Just that's all I can say. I mean, I'm working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, doing everything I can. And I'm not suggesting that you should do that by any stretch of the imagination. I like what I do and I have a goal, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out if the whole thing blows up and I'm wrong. But we'll see. So I don't know. That's all I got, Scott. What else you got? Anything? Final thoughts?
That's all I got for now. I think final thoughts would be, people need to brace themselves for what's going on. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best, as they say, and create. Get creative. Talk to other people. Figure out what they're doing as we head into these, the rough waters of this year. Maybe there will be a silver lining at the end of the day for a lot of this. I know I say it almost every week, but when all else fails, look local. Look for people locally to come stay at your parks. Look for local partnerships with other businesses. Find people who are in similar situations. Figure out what you can do together.
Oh, there we go. I don't know if that was me or you or what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it's like, I think the idea of think local is.
Yep, I heard most of it.
Is, and that's to me, that's the idea. And maybe in some respects, again, that's the silver lining, is it does make people think locally a little bit more. And I'll just use an example. People talk about the price of food a lot. Where I live in Maine, we have really good access to local food. In fact, someone did a study that said we have the best access in the country to local food. I don't know how. I'm sure Canada is pretty good too. But I remember someone saying recently
you just said you had the best access in the country. We're not in the same country, brother. You just said Maine. You just said Maine had the best access to local food in the country, and you're like, "Oh, I'm sure Canada is also good." We're not in the same country, man. So that both of those things could be true. I'm just saying
they could be true. In this country, we do.
Okay. Yeah.
But like for example, someone mentioned, I don't even know where I saw this. But they said like the price of like a good, a pound of ground beef was, I don't know, double digits. And I know that our local farmer who has grass-fed beef that's very high quality, and we can visit their farm and everything. It's $7.99 a pound. It's
that's not that far off. Like I mean, $7.99. So Canadian dollars, that would probably be about like 11 bucks up here, Canadian dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Like I pay probably $15, $14.15 for grass fed, but I also get it from a farm that does the 10% organ meat and all that stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit, I'm assuming it's a little bit more expensive because of that.
Sure. But again, there it is. It's like, those local sources, find farmers that will sell you, bushels of and boxes of produce that they don't know what to do with. There's a lot you can be creative with, but look and partner with local businesses. Figure out things to do. Everybody's going to look for similar situations. It's a great time to develop some local partnerships.
Yeah, but I think what we've come to a conclusion of here, and maybe we'll still be wrong. Maybe something will change. But I think what we've ended up on a conclusion here of is that we don't know what's going to happen to occupancy. Nobody can say that for sure yet. Nobody can say who's going to be full or not. What we can say for sure with, 95 to 98% accuracy is that gas is about to go up significantly higher in the next month or two, regardless of what happens in Iran or doesn't happen in Iran.
Oh,
So
we did have comments, by the way. I don't know if you saw these.
I thought Terry commented a few times. Yeah. What did Terry? She was talking about the glamping.
Oh, and
The more AI we use, the more human we must become. My take. You're not. Yeah, show that. You can show that. Like I don't disagree with you, Terry. Like I think, and we were talking about this in MC Fireside Chats earlier a little bit. I got to figure out what's with the like giant fonts and the non. It used to look pretty when you put it on there, and then something happened. But anyway, I don't disagree with you. Like we were talking about this earlier. Like there's no place really that I can imagine that AI has in the guest experience itself. Once the guest is at your property, experiencing outdoor hospitality, we're trying to get them into nature, as we talked about with the accommodations. We're trying to get them to appreciate the waterfall and appreciate the trees and appreciate the grass and go barefoot and get grounded and forest bathe or whatever else we want, right? There's no place for AI in that. The place for AI comes before that. The place for AI comes in the organization of the back end of the office, analyzing the financials, doing all the busy work so that you or your staff are no longer stuck with a screen between you and that guest. So you have more time to spend with that guest. And the other flip side is gathering enough data intelligence and personalization to provide that guest with a stay that is really, really unique and personalized to them, that can be gathered using AI and analyzed using data, but the guest has absolutely fuck all clue where that came from. They don't care. They just know that their stay is all of a sudden better, or your stay at your property because you use that was better than the property down the street. But once they're here on your property, the stay is personalized because of the data. You and your staff are able to spend more face time with them, and they're able to get outside and enjoy nature without technology in their face. That's the win.
Yep, and I agree, Terry.
Overthinking it.
It's the human factor is it as Brian just said very, very well, that it provides us the opportunity to be more human. It really does, and that's how we should embrace it. Good comments.
All right, we're out of here. Let's get out of here.
All right, everybody.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Outwired. Appreciate you guys. See you later. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.